Hey guys, before we get started with the episode, I just have two announcements to make. One, I have the Jibs Journal is out now. I send a weekly journal through email every single week that covers episode highlights, tips and tricks that the entrepreneurs in the show have gone over, and just other cool things that are happening. If you're interested in being subscribed to that journal, the link is in the description. The second announcement is I've released a course. So the course is how to crowdfund for your passion project, your side hustle. I crowdfunded over $65,000 in less than 90 days through my organization called Research Detroit. And the class is going to cover, the nitty-gritty details on how I did that, how I delegated the tasks with my team, the templates, the samples. It goes into full detail on how to run an effective crowdfunding campaign. So if you're interested in taking that course, the link is in the description as well.
It's just about getting up and doing it and finding the time, finding the people, and making it happen.
You take control and you say, okay, this needs to be done, and you do it.
And you're never ready to start a business. You just either do it or you don't.
Welcome to the Jibs Podcast, showcasing Detroit's movers and shakers, bringing you stories that reveal the gusto and grit that's long defined the city and its people. Together, we'll uncover the history and direction of the Motor City, one voice at a time. This is the Jibs Podcast with Jibran Ahmed.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of the Jibs Podcast. I'm here with Caitlin and Riney from George
Hey
Gregory.
guys.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing really well. I think your store is beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And this is exciting because all the guests I've had in the past, they've varied, but I've never had anybody that's done retail.
Okay, exciting.
So,
yeah, happy to be the first.
Absolutely. And I think that we can get some really good advice and some great stories out of it too.
Yeah, let's get it started.
Yeah. So can you explain what George Gregory is?
Yeah, so I opened George Gregory. First of all, it's a men's clothing store, specifically just for men, although I have women that shop here and everyone, so that's nice. I opened in October, and it's kind of been a lifelong dream of mine. So born and raised in Michigan, and then moved to Chicago, kind of wanted to spread my wings and grow as just like a woman in general outside of Michigan. So I went to Chicago for school. And then I worked there for 2 years after. And when I went to re-sign my lease in my apartment, something that just told me, it's time to go home. It's time to follow your dream, figure out what that dream specifically is, and then full throttle, go for it. So I moved home. I lived with my parents for about a year when I first moved home to kind of dip my toes, and see what's going on. I knew I would always open a retail store, but I really didn't know if it would be men or women or combined or kids or whatever, So I spent about, I would say a good 6 months talking to people in the city, figuring out what type of retail they wanted. I would talk to anyone and everyone. And I mean, really like 80% of people said a casual men's store. So then that's what I set on. I was like, okay, if you talk to the community, they're going to tell you what they want. And you need to listen. So I listened, and George Gregory formed. It is my dad and brother's middle names, which took quite a bit of time. You'd be shocked how hard it is to come up with a name for a business. I went through dozens, and I finally got to the point where I decided I wasn't going to, I came up with George Gregory, and I wasn't going to tell anyone because I feel like I don't have kids, but it's like naming a child. You tell people, and then they have a million opinions about it. So yeah, got it LLC'd, and then made the announcement, and here we are.
How do you choose the collection that you have?
So it's interesting. So I grew up 2 brothers, no sisters. So I'm kind of used to men's fashion. I have a lot of guy friends, so I pick from their style. But I go to vendor shows in Vegas and New York, sometimes Chicago, and I kind of just go with my gut, really. And I also spend a lot, I go with my gut. Seems like a very, okay, cool, you have a really good intuition. I also do a lot of research and a lot of research on brands and see what's selling, see what's not. There's a couple of brands I took a risk on, that I just felt that Detroit could use and spice things up a little bit. So some of the brands I know, some of them I'm really familiar with through my brothers, through friends, through personal research, and some of them I just go to these shows and you talk to these vendors, and some of these brands have really cool stories. They're like me, they started from the bottom, and now they're showcasing in Vegas at this huge vendor show, which is, a massive, massive accomplishment for people that don't know how this all works. To have a booth at a huge show like that, it's not cheap, and there's a lot of hard work that goes into that.
Yeah.
So it's cool. I mean, I like brands that have a story behind them. It's kind of a mix. There's some U.S. brands, there's some overseas brands, there's some European brands in here. So I kind of just want to keep it spicy and see where it takes me.
So you were saying you lived in Chicago,
Yeah.
and you went to school, and you were working for a little bit. So like, what were you doing that made you want to stop and just come here?
Yeah, so I went to school for PR and advertising. Didn't really know exactly where that would take me. I'm creative, so I knew I would do something in the creative field. And then I landed a job with iHeart in radio sales after college, which I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is a sweet company. My parents were like, great, college education, you're doing something with it. Worked there for 2 years, absolutely loved the team I worked with, didn't so much love the job. It was very stagnant. I was at a desk all day, and it was just, kind of the same thing every day. And ever since I was a kid, I knew I'd own a business. I mean, I swear, like when I was in 6th grade, I would tell people, one day I'm gonna own a business. I just don't know what it is yet. But I think when I really sat down and tried to explore, I'm a firm believer in like figuring out what you're good at and just running with that. Like, it could be anything. You can create a job out of anything. You just need to figure out what you're good at. And when I really sat down, I'm like, how many people do I help? Not even necessarily help style, but how many people do contact me or text me with photos? Hey, does this look good? Hey, do you like this shirt? Hey, what should I pair this with? And I was like, okay, like fashion's my avenue. And I'm not somebody that's necessarily dressed to the nines every day. Like, you can catch me in a sweatshirt and sweatpants, 3 out of 7 days of the week, whatever it is. But I'm a firm believer in look good, feel good, and I just knew I could run with that and make something of it, and that's what makes me happy at the end of the day, is helping people, boost their confidence. And I know, yeah, cool, I can rock a sweatshirt and sweatpants, but I know when I put myself together, I carry myself differently. You feel better about yourself. You have this confidence that comes about you. So it's nice to be able to bring that to the city. But yeah, it was an interesting transformation, I would say, once I fully decided that the corporate life wasn't for me.
Right.
It was hard. I was scared. I mean, I was really scared. Really, really scared. So that's why I moved home. That's why I moved with my parents for a little bit, because I was just like, okay, let's just calm down for a second, figure out if this is really what you want to do. I talked to so many business owners, and obviously everyone tells you it's great, but it's hard work. And I like to work hard, but I was like, do I like to work that hard? And that was a huge thing I needed to figure out. I'm a hard worker, but this is more than hard work. This is beyond that. And then I kind of just finally decided, you got to do it. I say all the time, and it sounds cliche, but I was so sick of dipping my toes into dreams and whatever. You just cannonball in and just get it done. No dipping your toes, full cannonball, and run with it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that. You moved in back with your parents. I know a ton of people. I've interviewed a few people that have all moved in back with their parents because, they're lucky enough to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
And that is such a great place to be, especially when you're starting a business.
Totally.
Because you get to save so much money when you're doing it.
So much money, and I'm really lucky in the aspect that I have a super supportive family, and I come from a family that is really hardworking. My dad has built himself up from security guard to now running the health system that he runs. And he just literally built himself up, just kept going and pushing. And he always says, and I remind myself this all the time, that the days you want to go home and put your feet up, you need to go to the next event. You need to go meet that person. You need to go do this or whatever it is. You have to keep pushing yourself, else people forget about you and nothing happens, and nothing grows. You're going to be exhausted, but that's just part of it. And both my brothers are super, super hard workers. My mom's a nurse. I just come from a really good family of people that don't settle, and you got to go out there and get what you want, and there's no in between. You just have to do it.
I think that's a good segue to the next thing is how, obviously when you were first starting this business, I can imagine things were kind of all over the place, and just finding the direction that you need to go in is a little bit hard.
For sure.
So what were some of the first things that you started doing that kind of helped clear your vision and set that path? Yeah,
for sure. So me being the creative side of my brain is very strong. The business side, the paperwork side and the business plan side, not so much. So I took a build class, Detroit Build. which was great. I mean, it was a little bit of a struggle for me because, again, I was just like, I don't want to do this. I just want to start. You know what I mean? So, but it got the business plan done, which, as many people say, you could probably do without it. It was a really nice structure to have, and at least something concrete that I could look back on, being like, okay, I checked this off the list. Here we are now, you know, like a step-by-step path. So yeah, I got that done, and then the next thing was really finding a space, which was really hard. I mean, we talked a little bit before this, but downtown is packed. You know, there's not a lot of spaces left, and obviously the walking traffic down there is superb, but to be honest, I couldn't afford it. You know, I can't afford to be in this central location right now. And then I found Corktown. I've always loved Corktown. I go out a lot in Corktown. It has a very comforting feeling, very family, community-based. And the Greening of Detroit used to be in this space, which was a nonprofit. Yeah, and they're amazing company. And Chase Bank gave them another location. So obviously they took that opportunity and moved elsewhere. But my mom is on the board for the Greening of Detroit, and so when she heard that they were moving, I mean, she was like, do not tell anyone. We're not speaking of this. Like, my daughter needs a space. This could be perfect, you know. So she really kind of took lead there, which I'm so thankful for. Because really, I mean, this space would have been gone in 2 seconds. So I called the landlord before they even announced that they were moving, and kind of it happened very fast. You know, he believed in my business. He believed in that I was gonna make it, you know, and obviously no landlord wants to sign with somebody who they think is gonna be out in a year.
Right.
And I got really lucky in the sense that he owns a lot of things in Corktown and really wants small business owners, so it's not a moneymaker for him. You know, he really just wants me to grow, and eventually as we grow, I'm sure the rent will go up, but for right now, it's a really baseline, which is awesome. I mean, I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah, it seems like you're really good at like leveraging your relationships that you have
totally
to kind of work for you.
Yeah.
So how have you done that in the past, and what kind of advice would you give to somebody to get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think just remain open. I've always remained open. Like, I fully believe no matter who you come across, there's something you can learn from them. I could be totally different than the next person that walks in this store, but I guarantee you, and a million people say this, but I promise you, like, after a 5-minute conversation, we would have something in common. And just talk to people. I think people forget the benefit of chatting with somebody, of a 20-minute conversation, of a 10-minute conversation, and just what that can lead to or what that can give you. I mean, I'm so blessed that so many people that come in this store, after talking with them, I hear that they've told a friend, and that friend comes in the store, and you know, this conversation continues on. I really do think you just have to stay open and use your words. Like, forget the cell phone, forget the Instagram, forget the social media. Go meet with people, talk with them, have a coffee, go walk around Detroit. You know, hear what they have to say about the city and what they want to bring to it, or what they want to see go away. You know, Detroit's not perfect. No city is. And I think it's really interesting, different perspectives. I really like to talk to people who are from out of town and their opinions on the city, which for the most part, we're really lucky right now. Everyone has positive things to say, which is awesome. But it's just, it's really interesting to me to get people's perspectives for sure.
Yeah. So you kind of talked about, finding like a good location.
Yeah.
You were looking for one in the beginning, but when it comes to starting a retail company or retail business, what were some of the obstacles that you ran into in the beginning?
Yeah, so retail's hard. There was a lot of people. I mean, I will say, any advice is you have to believe in yourself, because I have some loving friends who said, you're crazy. Like, you're crazy to open a retail store. Have you seen what's happening to boutiques and malls and whatever? Mm-hmm. And of course they support me, but they're honest. I mean, in their perspective, this is crazy, So you have to fully believe in yourself. Retail obstacle, I mean, online is a huge obstacle. I'm not gonna lie, when Amazon wanted to come here, I was stoked in a sense, because the city, of course, would have benefited from it, but small businesses would have hurt. Mm-hmm. That's just that's the world we live in right now, that online shopping and Amazon and cheaper, accessible goods are right there. So that's hard. Not that my clothes are sold on Amazon, but nonetheless, you can find a cheaper alternative that's pretty close to it, So that gets tough. Also, just having I mean, every retail space, they say location, location, location. So when I signed in Corktown, there was nothing really in my block. I mean, both sides of me were empty. And you just have to have faith that this is gonna grow, and just like you're gonna grow. But I got lucky that I opened right before holiday season, so that was amazing. But then winter hits, and no one's walking around, especially in Corktown, because there's nothing to walk around to. And that's getting better as now the strip fills out and more businesses move in. But again, that was a huge obstacle, because every day I've had days that no one's come in, that's doubt setting in. That's, okay, well, what's gonna be tomorrow? And if this whole week no one comes in, then what does that mean? And you just have to fully believe kind of that it's gonna get better, but it's also a money game. You can't, if I have the same clothes in here for 3 months and people are coming in and seeing the same stuff, no one's gonna come back. So there has to be, it's a money game of how do you recycle and reuse some of these clothes to get new stuff in here, while at the same time, maybe you're not having the biggest sales. So it's a tricky game.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier, you work hard, but you don't know if you want to work that hard.
Yeah.
And so when you have days where nobody comes in,
yeah.
Right? So how do you get up every morning and motivate yourself, or what kind of self-talk are you giving?
Yeah, for sure. To be honest, well, let's just start. There's days that I don't want to get out of bed. There's days that I don't want to do this. And it's really, really hard sometimes to just push through. At least for my business, I work solo. I work by myself. I have no team. I'm here every day. And that will change eventually as this business grows. But there's no teammate high-fiving me in the morning saying, you can do this, or we got this, or I'll cover you, And luckily I have family and friends support, but it's not the same. They don't have the weight on their shoulders. I will say I listen to a lot of podcasts and just try to motivate myself and hear other people's stories. There has been so many times that I've reached out to other business owners in Corktown, downtown, midtown, whatever it is, and kind of just said, okay, like I'm stagnant. I feel burnt out. What's happening? And the best advice I've ever got is if you really, and I've done this, if you need to close the shop for a day, close the shop. Refuel yourself. Put a note on the door, personal day, like owner's personal day, People understand. As people get to know me too and know that I run this shop on my own, they really get it. And there's days that I have to do that I completely feel burnt out. And it's hard. It's not hard, but it's a different world working with the public every day. You kind of always have to be on. When some days you don't want to be on. Some days I don't want to talk to somebody that comes in here, Most days I do. But of course there's days everyone gets down and everyone gets stressed and overwhelmed, and you just have to remember that you're allowed to take a break. Even if it's 2 hours, even if I just close the shop for 2 hours and just whatever I do, go read outside, or just go walk around, or do something, or go lay in bed and do nothing, and just figure out what refuels you. But I think podcasts are amazing. I find a lot of inspiration from them. I also read a lot, which helps, but you just have to keep your mind going, and keep re-energizing yourself and learning and figuring out ways. Okay, so this week sucked. Let's figure out why it sucked. Was it weather? Was it something you're offering? Is that not working? Was it just an off week? But how do we pivot and change that? And how do we grow from that?
What podcasts do you listen to?
I listen to a lot of Tony Robbins. I listen to Gary Vee. She has more of a women clientele, but the Skinny Confidential, she's kind of just like a gossipy podcast that I let steam off with. But I listen to a lot of Tony Robbins and Gary Vee.
Yeah.
I really like Gary Vee. He's sometimes a little much, but he gets you going. And a lot of the stuff, I'm kind of like, whatever, man, like, screw you. But then when I think about it, I'm like, shit, he's right. Like, shoot,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. You have to, I'm never going to be able to 100% refuel myself every day. So you've got to expand and figure out who else can do that for you, or at least help you. Because if not, you burn out. You will, everyone would.
So what are you hoping for in the next year, 5 years, 10 years?
It's crazy to even think that far, to be honest. I haven't even made it a year yet here. That will be in October. I really hope to grow this place. I hope in the next, 2 years to have a team. I say all the time, the best thing about owning a business is being your own boss, and it's also the worst thing. you know, because it's just all you all the time. And your brain never shuts off. I mean, I was somebody before when I worked in radio sales, when I left work, it was done. You know, like that was it. The door's shut, and I didn't really think about it besides the off day until I went back in the morning. My world's flipped upside down with this place. That is not the case in the slightest. Even if I'm not in the shop, even if my parents are covering for me for a day, it's 24/7 at my brain. You know, what's next, what's happening, what can we do? So that's just all part of it. But yeah, it's just kind of a learning experience. I really hope to grow, have a team. It's interesting in the aspect. So you open, obviously I talk to so many people, you open a men's store, and now all these people have ideas of what else you can open. But I really just want to kind of stay in my lane right now and conquer this men's fashion world and make it the best it can be, and then expand from there. I will say you rarely make enough money, at least the money that I want to make for my life, off one retail store. So most likely I'll expand to 2, maybe 3. I don't know if it would necessarily be men's, but we'll see. I'm in the middle of opening my online store, so that's a whole nother aspect. That's almost another store in itself. Like that's a whole other beast. So that will bring a lot more work, and I'm sure hopefully another teammate will come along and kind of help me with that. But I think right now just figuring out how to get by week by week. I mean, it's hard stuff. It's not easy at all.
Yeah. We're in a men's boutique.
Yep.
Can you give some advice for men listening or watching on just if they want to dress better, or what kind of advice would you give them?
I'd give the advice of don't be scared to be creative, right? Like there's so many ways, easy ways to be creative about how you dress, or if you want to be a plain dresser, I'm all about black jeans and a black tee. Like looks good on everyone. You don't have to get crazy about it. So I think that just kind of like figuring out how you want to feel at the end of the day. I'm always kind of dressed in like wild not always, I wear black a lot, but I like a hat moment. I like, prints. I like stuff like that. Not everyone's like that. Some people like plain and simple. I think the biggest thing is wear clothes that fit your body. I think a lot of guys wear stuff too big, and it just doesn't do anything. And again, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But at the same time, I think a nice slick city look that's casual looks great.
Yeah. Some guys also wear stuff too tight.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. Way too tight. And I have a couple clientele customers, whatever you want to call them, that wear things awfully tight. And as much as I kind of try to sway them out, that's just what they like, And there's no changing that. And you just kind of have to accept it.
Right. What to you makes Detroit so special? Yeah.
So I think I probably already said this, but I'm really lucky in the aspect. My dad works in Detroit and kind of grew up in the city. Just watching him conquer the city and grow it and always see the good in Detroit. I mean, when I was a child, we were coming down to Detroit when there was nothing to come down for. We just did it because he believed in it. Detroit it's always felt like home. Even when I lived in Chicago, I knew I would end up back home. Not necessarily doing this, but I knew I would end up back home. There's a sense of community here. There's a sense of, I've had friends that have visited from out of town, and they always say there's an energy. People want to change things. People want to do things, whether it's big or small. I mean, somebody the other day outside was picking the weeds on the sidewalk just to make the sidewalk look better. I mean, little things like that, you're changing the city. And it took him 45 minutes, and he didn't work for my landlord. He was just doing it out of the goodness of his heart, and you don't find that a lot of places. The people that just want to invest in the city, no matter the amount of little money they have or a lot of money, whatever it is, they just want to do something to improve the city. And that's inspiring in itself. Like that makes me want to get up and do something and make this place as best as it can be because everyone else is doing something. So yeah, that's kind of why.
I think that's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
So for people watching or listening, if they want to find you or connect with you, where can they go?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, shop George Gregory. I'm always doing weird Insta videos because I have to entertain myself somehow. You can also, I think on Facebook, it's Shop George Gregory too. The website is www.shopgeorgegregory.com, or just come visit at 1422 Michigan Avenue.
Cool. Well, Kaylin, I appreciate you.
I appreciate
you. On the show.
Thank you.
And for everybody watching and listening, until next time, stay tuned.
Bye.
Cool.